The arena was already buzzing that night. Fighters, trainers, journalists, and hardcore boxing fans filled every seat, all expecting another unforgettable combat sports event. Flashing lights. Camera crews everywhere. The energy was loud, confident, and charged with anticipation. Among the guests sitting quietly near the front was Steven Seagal. No spotlight. No announcement. No attempt to draw attention. He didn't look like someone preparing to prove anything. Calm posture. Relaxed expression. Almost invisible compared to the roaring crowd around him. Then something unexpected happened. A familiar figure stepped closer to the ring. Tall, confident, smiling like he owned the moment. The crowd instantly erupted when they realized who it was. Muhammad Ali. Ali raised his hands slightly, soaking in the cheers like only he could. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't angry. He was playful, but there was still that sharp edge behind his smile. The edge of a man who knew exactly what he was capable of. Ali looked around, and then his eyes locked onto Steven Seagal. For a brief second, it felt like coincidence. Then Ali spoke. He pointed toward Steven and casually called him into the ring. The reaction was instant. Laughter. Confusion. Excitement. People started whispering. Is this serious? A movie guy in a boxing ring? What is Ali doing? Steven didn't react immediately. He didn't smile for the cameras or shake his head. He simply stood up, slowly, calmly, and walked toward the ring. No rush. No hesitation. That alone changed the mood. As Steven stepped between the ropes, the noise softened. Not silence yet, but curiosity replaced laughter. People were suddenly paying attention. Something about his calm presence felt different. Ali stood across from him, relaxed but alert. This wasn't trash talk. This wasn't an insult. This was curiosity meeting confidence. Ali looked at Steven and said, almost casually, "So they say you're all about technique." Steven nodded slightly. Ali leaned forward and added, "Let's see it." At this moment, most people in the arena thought one thing. This is going to end badly for Steven. A boxer with lightning speed. A ring built for punches. And a martial artist known for control, not brute force. The odds didn't make sense. But Steven didn't raise his guard. Didn't step back. Didn't argue. He stood there, calm, centered, as if the noise, the cameras, and the pressure didn't exist. And then, with a steady voice, he said something that made the entire arena freeze. "Hit me." What happened next would take less than 5 seconds. But it would change how millions of people viewed strength forever. The moment Steven Seagal said, "Hit me," the energy inside the arena shifted. What had started as laughter slowly turned into disbelief. People leaned forward in their seats. Some smiled nervously. Others shook their heads, convinced they were about to witness something embarrassing. Across from Steven stood Muhammad Ali, still relaxed, still smiling, but now clearly focused. Ali had spent his entire life reading opponents. He could sense fear, hesitation, and ego in seconds. But this was different. Steven wasn't posturing. He wasn't challenging Ali's legacy. He wasn't trying to steal the spotlight. He stood there with his hands down, shoulders loose, breathing steady, like a man completely comfortable inside pressure. That made people uncomfortable. From the crowd, voices began to rise. "Put your hands up. You're not in a movie. He's about to get knocked out." Some laughed. Others shouted warnings. A few even looked away, expecting impact. This is where psychology became more important than strength. Most fighters respond to pressure by tightening up. Their muscles tense. Their movements become rigid. Steven did the opposite. The louder the crowd got, the calmer he appeared. Almost like the noise was feeding his focus instead of breaking it. Ali circled slightly, studying him. You could tell Ali wasn't trying to embarrass Steven. This wasn't about dominance. It was curiosity. Ali wanted to understand why this man was standing so calmly in a boxing ring, inviting a punch from one of the fastest hands in history. Steven's eyes never left Ali's chest and shoulders, not his face. That detail mattered. Experienced fighters don't watch expressions, they watch movement. Most people in the audience didn't notice that. They were too busy choosing sides. Boxing fans believed speed and power would win instantly. Martial arts fans believed control would make the difference. And right here is where you come in. Before anything happens, pause for a second. Which country and city are you watching this from? Drop it in the comments. This moment pulled attention from all over the world. Back in the ring, the tension kept building. Ali raised his hand slightly, testing distance. Not attacking, just measuring. Steven didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He adjusted his stance by a fraction of an inch, barely noticeable unless you were trained. The crowd mistook this calm for arrogance. But calm isn't arrogance when it's backed by discipline. Ali stopped moving and looked directly at Steven. "You sure?" his expression seemed to say. Steven gave a small nod. Nothing dramatic. No words this time. That silence hit harder than any punch could have. Because now, everyone realized something important. Steven wasn't guessing. He wasn't hoping. He had already committed to whatever was about to happen. The cameras zoomed in. The announcers stopped talking. Even the loudest fans began to quiet down. Why? Because uncertainty is louder than noise. In that moment, nobody knew what was about to happen, and that made it powerful. Ali shifted his weight slightly forward. Steven adjusted his balance just as subtly. Two masters from completely different worlds, meeting in the same space. One built on speed and impact. The other built on timing and control. And right before the action finally broke the silence, a question hung in the air, unspoken but felt by everyone watching. Was this confidence? Or was this about to be a costly mistake? In the next moment, Ali would throw a punch. And in less than 5 seconds, everything people thought they knew about power was about to be challenged. The arena had never felt this quiet. Moments earlier, the crowd had been loud, divided, emotional. Now, it was as if everyone instinctively understood they were standing on the edge of something rare. Something unscripted. Something real. Across the ring, Muhammad Ali slowly adjusted his stance. This wasn't a show anymore. Ali had performed in front of millions, taunted opponents, danced under pressure, but this moment was different. Not because Steven Seagal was threatening. Not because he looked dangerous. But because he looked completely unafraid. Steven stood with his hands down, feet grounded, weight balanced perfectly between stillness and motion. His breathing was slow and controlled. No wasted movement. No nerves visible on the surface. For most people watching, this made no sense. Boxing fans whispered among themselves. Why isn't he protecting his face? Is he trying to prove something? Does he even realize who he's standing in front of? What they didn't understand was that Steven wasn't preparing to absorb a punch. He was preparing to intercept intent. That difference is subtle, but everything. Ali took a half step forward. Steven didn't move. Ali rolled his shoulders, loosening them instinctively. Years of muscle memory guiding him. His eyes scanned Steven's body language, searching for tension, for hesitation, for any sign of fear. There was none. That alone forced Ali to slow down. When a fighter can't read fear, they hesitate, not out of weakness, but out of intelligence. Steven finally spoke again. Calm. Even. Almost quiet. Hit me. No sarcasm. No challenge in his tone. Just certainty. And this is the moment where everything narrowed down to a single question. Be honest, right here, before anything happens. Who do you think has the advantage? Type Ali or Steven in the comments. Back in the ring, Ali exhaled slowly through his nose. He didn't rush. Ali knew better than anyone that speed means nothing without timing. So instead of throwing power, he tested reality. A controlled jab. Fast, but not reckless. The kind of punch meant to measure distance, reaction, and truth. Time slowed. Steven's eyes didn't follow the fist. They followed the shoulder. Because punches don't start at the hand, they start at the core. As Ali's shoulder shifted, Steven moved, not away, but into the line of force. A subtle angle change. A fractional pivot. His lead foot adjusted by inches. To the untrained eye, it looked like nothing. To fighters watching closely, it was everything. The punch didn't land clean. It didn't miss dramatically either. It simply lost meaning. Ali felt it instantly. Not pain, not resistance, but imbalance. The kind that disrupts rhythm, not posture. Ali pulled back. The crowd gasped, but not loudly. More like a collective inhale. Because no one expected that. Steven hadn't blocked. He hadn't dodged. He hadn't countered. He had neutralized. This is where confusion set in. Some fans clapped, unsure why. Others looked around, trying to confirm what they'd just seen. A few laughed nervously, waiting for something more dramatic to happen. But fighters knew. Ali knew. Steven still hadn't raised his hands. Still calm. Still centered. The power exchange people expected never came, because Steven never invited force. He invited commitment, and then redirected it. Ali smiled. Not mockingly. Not dismissively. But with recognition. That smile said one thing: I felt that. The crowd slowly started to understand something important. This wasn't about toughness. This wasn't about absorbing pain. This wasn't even about proving who was stronger. It was about control. And control doesn't look exciting at first glance. It looks boring. Until you realize what it just prevented. Steven stepped back half a pace, not retreating, just resetting. The ring felt smaller now. The noise hadn't returned yet. Because everyone was still processing what had just happened. Did this surprise you, or did you expect something like this? Let me know in the comments. Ali rolled his neck, relaxed his arms, and laughed softly. Not because he was embarrassed, but because he was impressed. He raised his eyebrows slightly and nodded, as if saying, "Okay, now I see." And in that nod, the dynamic changed completely. This was no longer a challenge. It was mutual respect forming in real time. Steven said nothing. He didn't explain. He didn't boast. He didn't turn to the crowd. He let silence do the talking. Because sometimes, the strongest statement isn't what you say, it's what you allow others to realize on their own. And everyone in that arena realized one thing at the same time. Whatever they thought was about to happen, they were wrong. The moment after the punch felt heavier than the punch itself. The crowd didn't erupt. No cheers. No boos. No noise at all. Just confusion. People looked at each other, searching for confirmation. Some expected Steven Seagal to be on the ground. Others expected Muhammad Ali to follow up with another punch. Neither happened. Instead, both men stood still. Steven remained calm, his posture unchanged, breathing steady, as if nothing of consequence had occurred. Ali, however, felt it. Not pain. Not resistance. But disruption. The kind of disruption that tells a fighter something didn't go according to plan. Ali took a small step back and shook his arms loose, resetting his balance. His expression wasn't annoyed or defensive. It was thoughtful. Curious. This is where many people misunderstand what just happened. Steven didn't stop a punch. He didn't overpower Ali. He didn't outmuscle him. He didn't challenge him head-on. He redirected intention. That's the part most spectators miss. Power travels in straight lines. Technique bends those lines. Steven had positioned himself so that Ali's forward energy had nowhere clean to go. The punch wasn't blocked, it was made irrelevant. And that's far more difficult than it looks. Ali glanced at Steven again, this time more seriously. The playful edge was still there, but something else had entered the space: respect. Ali had faced countless opponents, some aggressive, some technical, some reckless. But very few had ever disrupted his rhythm without throwing a punch of their own. This was new territory. Steven shifted his weight slightly, not advancing, not retreating, just staying present. His hands were still down. The crowd began whispering again. Why isn't he guarding? Is he trying to provoke him? This doesn't look real. But experienced fighters watching knew exactly why. Raising your guard invites force. Lowering it invites responsibility. Steven wasn't daring Ali to hit harder. He was inviting Ali to commit fully, and commitment creates openings. Ali circled once more, lighter on his feet now, more measured. He wasn't rushing anymore. He was reading. That alone told the story. Ali was no longer treating this as a joke. Do you think raw power is more dangerous than control, or does control always win in the end? Share your opinion below. Ali fainted this time. A shoulder twitch. A half step. Testing reaction. Steven responded instantly, but minimally. A micro-adjustment. A small angle change. Enough to remain centered. No wasted motion. This wasn't about spectacle. This was about efficiency. And efficiency rarely looks exciting to people who expect chaos. Ali smiled again and nodded slowly. That nod said something important. You're not bluffing. The energy in the arena began to change. Fans who had been shouting earlier grew quieter. The laughter faded completely. Phones were raised higher now, not for mockery, but for documentation. People sensed they were witnessing something subtle but significant. Steven finally spoke, not loudly, not dramatically. Power only works when it lands. His voice was calm, almost instructional. But control works before that. Ali chuckled softly, appreciating the truth in the statement. This wasn't a lecture. It wasn't an argument. It was an exchange of philosophies. One built on speed, timing, and impact. The other built on balance, redirection, and restraint. And neither was being disrespected. That's what made this moment special. Ali took another step back, lowering his hands slightly. Not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. He had nothing to prove. Neither did Steven. The crowd felt it now. This wasn't about who could hurt the other. It was about showing that violence isn't the highest expression of strength. Sometimes, the most powerful move is the one you never throw. Did this moment change how you view martial arts, or did it confirm what you already believed? Steven took one slow breath and stepped back as well, giving space. No celebration. No smirk. No bow. Just presence. Ali looked around the arena, then back at Steven. And in that look, everyone understood something profound. Two masters from different worlds had just met on equal ground, not to dominate, but to understand. The challenge was over. But the lesson was just beginning. Something subtle, but powerful, changed in the ring. It wasn't announced. It wasn't spoken out loud. But everyone felt it. The challenge was no longer the point. Muhammad Ali no longer stood like a man testing another's limits. His posture softened, not out of weakness, but awareness. The playful confidence was still there, but now it carried curiosity instead of confrontation. Across from him, Steven Seagal remained exactly the same. Calm. Centered. Unmoved. That contrast spoke louder than words. Ali lowered his hands slightly and exhaled, smiling as he shook his head, not in disbelief, but appreciation. The crowd noticed it instantly. Fighters know that look. It's the look someone gives when they realize they're standing in front of something real. Ali broke the silence with a quiet laugh. Interesting, he said, more to himself than to the audience. Steven didn't respond right away. He wasn't waiting for applause. He wasn't waiting for validation. He wasn't waiting for the crowd to catch up. He was present in the moment. This is where the mood fully shifted. Just minutes earlier, the crowd wanted spectacle. They wanted impact. They wanted dominance. No. They wanted understanding. Ali stepped a little closer, no longer circling, no longer testing. This wasn't a fighter approaching an opponent. This was a master approaching another master. You didn't try to stop the punch, Ali said calmly. Steven nodded. Stopping force creates more force. Ali's smile widened. That single exchange explained everything most people had just witnessed, but couldn't yet explain. Steven continued, his voice steady and respectful. When someone commits fully, they give you everything you need. Balance. Direction. Timing. Ali listened carefully. Not interrupting. Not arguing. Listening. That alone was historic. The crowd fell into a deep, respectful silence. Not because they were told to, but because instinctively they knew this was no longer entertainment. It was education. Have you ever seen a moment where silence felt more powerful than noise? Share your thoughts. Ali nodded slowly, absorbing the idea. For years, Ali said, people tried to beat power with more power. Steven replied, and most of them paid for it. Ali laughed, genuinely this time. That laughter wasn't mockery. It wasn't ego. It was recognition. The recognition that strength has many forms, and the loudest one isn't always the strongest. Ali stepped back and raised his hands, not in defense, but in a universal gesture fighters used to say, I understand. The crowd finally responded, not with screams, but applause. Not explosive. Measured. Respectful. This wasn't about who won. It was about what was learned. Steven gave a small nod in return. Not a bow. Not a flourish. Just acknowledgement. Do you think moments like this matter more than actual fights? Why or why not? Ali looked out at the audience now, scanning faces, sensing the shift. He knew moments like this didn't come often. When they did, they deserved to be marked. He turned back to Steven. You know, Ali said, people think fighting is about hitting. Steven smiled faintly. Most people do. Ali paused, then said, but tonight they saw something else. The weight of that statement landed hard. Because everyone knew it was true. Steven hadn't thrown a punch. He hadn't absorbed a punch. He hadn't shown aggression. Yet he had demonstrated control at the highest level, without humiliation, without dominance, without disrespect. That's why the moment lingered. Because it challenged a belief most people grow up with. That strength must look violent to be real. The ring no longer felt like a ring. It felt like a classroom. Ali stepped forward one final time, not to challenge, but to close the moment properly. And in doing so, he set the stage for something no one in that arena expected. Not a knockout. Not a winner. But a moment that would soon be remembered as history. Do you think true respect is earned through power, or through restraint? The answer to that question was about to be made unforgettable. The applause slowly faded, but the weight of the moment remained. No one rushed to speak. No one tried to steal attention. The ring felt different now, lighter, yet more meaningful. What had begun as curiosity had transformed into something rare, shared respect at the highest level. Muhammad Ali stood quietly, hands resting at his sides, eyes still on Steven Seagal. The playful energy that once defined the challenge was gone. In its place was clarity. Ali took one step forward. Then another. The crowd leaned in. Steven didn't move. He didn't brace himself or shift defensively. He simply remained present, grounded, open, exactly as he had been from the start. Ali stopped directly in front of him. For a brief second, it felt like time paused. Ali reached out, not with a punch, not with speed, but with intention. He took Steven's wrist gently and lifted his arm into the air. The reaction was instant. The arena erupted. Not with chaos, but with recognition. People stood up. Fighters nodded. Trainers clapped slowly. Even those who had doubted Steven moments earlier now applauded with sincerity. Ali raised Steven's hand higher and turned toward the crowd. This, Ali said, his voice calm but clear, is control. That single word carried more weight than 1,000 punches. Steven looked genuinely surprised, not by the gesture, but by the magnitude of the response. He didn't smile for the cameras. He didn't bow. He simply allowed the moment to exist. This wasn't about declaring a winner. This was Ali making a statement. A statement that strength isn't limited to fists. That mastery isn't always loud. That discipline deserves recognition, even when it doesn't fit expectations. Be honest. Did you expect this moment to end like this? Type yes or no in the comments. Ali lowered Steven's hand and looked at him again. You made people think tonight, Ali said quietly. Steven replied just as calmly. You gave them the chance. That exchange mattered. Because it showed something deeper than rivalry. It showed humility on both sides. Ali, a man who built his legend on confidence and charisma, chose to highlight restraint instead of dominance. Steven, a man often misunderstood, chose silence over explanation. The crowd could feel it. This wasn't staged. This wasn't scripted. This was two masters acknowledging truth in different forms. Ali turned once more to the audience. For years, he said, people asked who hits harder. He paused. Tonight, they saw who doesn't need to. That line rippled through the arena. It wasn't anti-boxing. It wasn't anti-fighting. It was perspective. Steven stepped back slightly, giving Ali space, not distancing himself, but honoring the moment. His posture never changed. Calm to the end. The applause returned, louder this time, but cleaner. Focused. Not hype. Respect. Does this change how you define strength? Why or why not? Ali placed a hand on Steven's shoulder briefly, a gesture fighters reserve for equals. That was the moment the cameras truly locked in. Because history isn't always made through violence. Sometimes, it's made through recognition. Steven finally spoke again, his voice steady and sincere. Power ends things, he said. Control preserves them. Ali nodded, clearly satisfied. The message was complete. The challenge had become a lesson. The lesson had become a moment. And the moment was now unforgettable. People would debate this for years. Some would say it proved technique over power. Others would say it was symbolic. Some would try to downplay it. But nobody who witnessed it could deny one thing. Something real had happened. If this moment deserves respect, comment respect below. As the crowd slowly settled and the fighters began to step away from the ring, one thing was clear. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of a legacy moment that would travel far beyond that arena, and far beyond that night. By the time the lights dimmed and the crowd slowly began to exit the arena, it was clear this night wouldn't end when the doors closed. Something had shifted. What people witnessed wasn't just an unusual interaction between two famous figures. It was a moment that challenged expectations, about strength, about fighting, about what real mastery looks like. Within hours, clips from the ring began spreading. Not just among boxing fans. Not just among martial artists. But across the world. People replayed the footage again and again, slowing it down, analyzing every movement. Comment sections exploded with debate. Some wrote, "This proves technique beats power." Others argued, "It wasn't a real fight." But even those who disagreed couldn't look away. Because whether people accepted it or questioned it, they were talking about it. And that's how legacy begins. At the center of every discussion stood two names, connected now by a moment that neither of them tried to dominate. Muhammad Ali, already immortal in sports history, had once again done something unexpected. Instead of proving how dangerous he was, he chose to highlight restraint. Steven Seagal, often misunderstood and underestimated, never went on a victory tour. He didn't post explanations. He didn't argue with critics. He let the moment speak for itself. That silence mattered. Because the most powerful moments don't beg to be understood, they wait to be felt. Over the following days, trainers broke down the footage for students. Fighters replayed it in gyms. Commentators debated it on panels. Philosophers of combat, yes, those exist, used it as an example of something deeper than technique. They spoke about intent, about commitment, about how control, when mastered, can end conflict before it begins. The most striking part, no one was hurt. No one was embarrassed. No one was diminished. Yet the impact was massive. Do you think moments like this are more important than actual fights? Why or why not? For many viewers, this moment reframed how they saw strength. Strength wasn't just about who could hit harder. It wasn't just about speed or dominance. It was about composure under pressure. Steven had stood in front of one of the fastest punchers in history and didn't flinch, not because he wanted to prove toughness, but because he trusted discipline. Ali had recognized that, and chose to honor it publicly. That choice echoed, because it reminded people that respect between masters matters more than spectacle. Years later, people still bring up that moment, not because of what happened physically, but because of what it represented. A pause in violence. A pause in ego. A pause that allowed understanding to step in. That's rare. And that's why it lasted. Steven once said very little afterward, but one line stayed with those who heard it. Control isn't weakness. It's responsibility. That idea stuck. Because in a world obsessed with domination, restraint feels revolutionary. In your own life, do you think control has helped you more than aggression? As time passed, the moment took on a symbolic meaning. For some, it was about martial arts philosophy. For others, it was about humility. For many, it was a reminder that real confidence doesn't need to shout. And that's the lesson that outlived the night. Not who could win. Not who was tougher. But who understood the moment. The clip may be short. The exchange may have lasted seconds. But the message, that continues. If you believe true strength is shown through control, discipline, and respect, type respect in the comments. And subscribe for more real stories where power doesn't shout, it speaks quietly. Because sometimes, history isn't made by what you do. It's made by what you choose not to do.